Okay, hi everybody. Today's topic is going to be on elite player development, and I'm sure that a lot of you players out there at any level, whether you're a club golfer or an aspiring professional, um, a lot of parents, I'm sure, of younger kids who are very keen to take up the sport professionally. We obviously also do have a lot of coaches who I'd like to share my knowledge with. So if you're on board, great. A lot of this stuff you may already know as a coach. I'm sure many of you already have a lot of the information I'm going to talk about. But the reason I'm here is I've had some success over the last few years in producing some good players. And I've improved my knowledge both as a coach, as a mentor, and there's lots I want to share with you from the parents' perspective. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for you as a parent to know, as a key stakeholder, to know what it would take for your child to actually make it out there. And for all you professionals out there, I think there are a lot of professionals who would identify with the fact that we can perform better. So, what exactly is performance training? How can I improve my performance? As a golfer. Um, so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about training in general, how we take a youngster or an existing player and we can actually help them to improve their scoring. We have a lot of youngsters today who are playing golf, but a lot of these youngsters are actually stopping at the amateur tour, not because they want to. I think because the player really never gets good enough. And at this point, time is of the essence. You have a 10-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid, he's got about 5, 6 years to actually get to the top level. And I think we need to start measuring the players more rather than from the national standpoint, more on an international standpoint. So I think it's very, very critical as to look how you look at your players' development overall. I've always believed in a holistic approach, and I feel that you really can't cut corners as a coach or a parent. You must pull out all the stops because your child has just a few years to go out there. And one of the biggest motivating factors is when a child or a player or a professional is getting better. So you'd see that straight away. And if the player is stagnating, as a coach, as a parent, and as a player yourself, if you're stagnating, you should know what you can do to get better. I've always believed in a team. I think it's very important to build a team around yourself. So we'll go through all the various aspects. I think I've got about a 15, 20-minute presentation, maybe more on that. We'll talk about that, and then we'll also, I'll also field some questions if you have any. Um, so starting, I'm just going to basically be sharing my screen with you. We'll go through each aspect. Right. I hope all of you can see my screen. Pramit, is the screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible, sir. You can carry on.
Okay. Let's talk about the first aspect, which is the technical aspect. Okay. And the first thing you want to do as a player is look for good information on the technical side. It's very, very important. You must, as a player, as a parent, start to see yourself hitting certain milestones with your technique. And I think it's very important to have periodic testing. And this is very, very simple stuff. This is testing mainly in practice. So when we talk about that, is are you actually going out to the driving range often enough and looking at your tendencies? I think a lot of players will go into a tournament and they're not really clear or certain in terms of their tendencies, and there's a lot of guesswork happening there. And especially when you're talking to your coach, you must talk to your coach from a standpoint of authority, where you know what's happening as a coach. I would definitely advise you to make sure that you know every player's tendencies so that you're clear as to which direction you're working in. So when a new player comes to me, I think a very, very simple test that I do. Um, and I'll just show that to you through a share on my iPad. Okay, I'm hoping all of you can see my screen from it.
Yeah, it's visible, sir.
Okay, so let's say we have a simple target out there, and we're doing a long game test. And I think if you ask a lot of players today, at any level, at the club level, to talk about their tendencies, I think very few of them are actually accurate in being able to define what actually happens to a ball. So if I take a player and I give him 5 balls, okay, and let's say I just do the 7 iron right now, right? And let's say we see the first ball is, let's say, a push, okay, and he's had a thin contact. Okay, the second one goes on target, a bit of a draw, or let's say a push draw. And let's say my contact was good. And the next one, again, I have a little bit of a push right. And third one, fourth one is a hook. Okay, contact seemed good. This was again a push, right, with a thin contact. Okay, and let's say the fifth one I hit straight on target, right, on target. So what this is now telling me, and you can do this with any level of player from a professional to a junior golfer, but it's very important for the golfer for him to process this. You see, his tendency is both sides, more of a push that actually creates the hook, right? This would be sometimes secondary, right? And this would be the primary miss. Okay, the primary miss is what you're going to look at, because the secondary one obviously um, is a reaction to what's happening there. Now, if you talk to most junior golfers, pro golfers, many amateurs as well, and ask them for their tendencies, and I think they should know the tendencies. You as a golfer should know your tendencies. So if you're talking to your coaches, right? You as a parent, if they're a younger player and they've come off a round of golf, knowing how to practice and what exactly is causing that. Because now, for example, if a player comes to you and says he's hitting a lot of hooks, when actually it's the push that he's hitting, and the hook is a secondary issue, you're not getting the right information there. So on the technical side, you must be able to identify and be convinced. Now, um, as a player, it's very, very important for you to know what's happening and be convinced that the direction that you're working in, is correct. And that's where everybody goes wrong, especially on the junior and amateur level, is that the player himself or herself the players are not clear on what exactly they're working towards. Now, remember, as a player, you must take ownership of your game. You can't always blame the coach or blame your parents. A lot of that, the blame game happens, we know. But as a player, professional, amateur, junior, and if you're a good coach, you must encourage your juniors and your amateurs to take ownership of their game and understand really what's going on. And this is where I find there's a big gap, because from the player's perspective, and the player and the coach sometimes are on a different level of thinking. So the player doesn't really know what's going on and hasn't taken enough ownership. As a parent, you must look for this. That's my advice to you, so that everybody's on the same page there. And that's how you can learn how to build skill. Now, this could be a bunker shot, it could be a chip shot. Very simply put, if you want to be an elite player, right, and let's say at the amateur level, can you hit 5 bunker shots with the same amount of spin, the same trajectory, right, the same depth of divot, the same distance, consistently? 5 shots. That's all I'm saying, right? Because by the fourth and the fifth shot, you're really feeling the pressure, because you've got to do the fourth and the fifth time. It's actually recreating what you would feel in a competitive environment. So if you're not able to do that, then you have to check why. And this is another piece of advice I have for all of you out there, coaches and players always look at the whys. If you're a player, always ask your coach why something is happening, why they're making a change. Because if you don't understand that change and you do it blindly, you're doing yourself a disservice. So it's important for you to also challenge your team from time to time. Okay, so the skill building part comes from a lot of understanding. Because if I go and if I hit balls, and I think we have a lot of youngsters today, junior golfers, amateurs, and professionals who spend hours on the course and hours on the driving range. The question is that you're spending all this time on the range, and why is it not translating into something on the golf course? And that is a question that needs to be answered for yourself first, right? As a coach, yes, you would be looking at that for sure. I'm hoping that you're looking at that objectively. But as a player, and this is for you players out there, you must know why is it that 6 hours of practice every day, day in, day out, is still resulting in a 12 over par? And there could be many factors. And the reason I'm here is to help you to identify what exactly is going on. So you have the technical side, which is very, very important. And now you have the physical side as well. So what does that, what would the physical side entail? Again, I would say definitely you must work with an expert. So you want to definitely work on the skill building aspect. Physical side, you have strength and conditioning. And remember, this can start as early as 9 years old. If you have a qualified strength and conditioning instructor, you can do this as early as 9 years old. Then you have mobility and stability of your joints and your muscles. You have injury management. And you have nutrition. Now we have, luckily in India, we have experts in pretty much all these areas. So you must have someone testing you very, very regularly. You must have this done more, I would say, more professionally. So if you look at, there are two aspects to it, right? There's strength and conditioning. And what I'm showing you right now is a test report. This is for the physiotherapy side, the mobility and stability side, right? And then based on this, the player has a workout, right? That could be what we call a prehabilitation workout. And if you can see here, everything is recorded. Every day, this information is recorded. And you have the strength and conditioning screening as well. You're generating reports almost every quarter. And then again, based on that, you have a workout. And again, if you see, every single workout is monitored and documented, so the player knows whether they're improving or they're not. Because today, a lot of players, I find they come back after a spate of tournaments outside and they don't know where to start. And that's when they get injured. But if you've recorded, and if your strength and conditioning team has recorded what's the last bit of weight you pushed, how many reps you did, what this is going to do is this is going to put you in a better position to start again from probably a slightly lower stage than when you left, because you would have lost muscle, you would have lost a bit of strength after a 5-week touring schedule. And the other thing is that you must be monitored while you're away as well. So here is how, some players are monitored, or we monitor the players. They basically have to put stuff into their training diary as to what their activities were. And on the right hand side, you see a calculation of the load that they're bearing, whether it's weight training or the number of balls they're hitting. And this will give you a fitness to fatigue ratio, and that can predict injury. So when we talk about, again, elite training, it is really a lot about working with a professional team. And what you just saw over there, and what I just demonstrated over there, is a team, a fitness, a strength and conditioning team, or a sports science team that's very, very highly professional in what they do. And this also gives the player a lot of confidence. It gives the coach the right kind of feedback as to what's happening with the player. How many balls should they be hitting? Why is their thoracic mobility poor? Is there an issue with ankle mobility so they can't do a particular move? So the coach then is working with the player in conjunction with the strength and fitness team, the physiotherapy team, and what you saw there is a very, very key factor, which is being able to predict injury. A lot of times, injuries happen not because the workload is too high or they're doing too much. You must understand that injuries happen because the workloads are spiking. If your workloads are spiking, right, you are going to have an issue with an injury. If you do really heavy workload, but you do it consistently every day, your body is going to be fine. And this is very, very important for you as a player to understand. Um, the next aspect is the mental side. So we look at the mental side here. The most important thing is a disciplined approach to this side, or what we call disciplined thinking. Okay, and a lot of times this can be done by a sports psychologist or even a mentor has to work on this. Now, what is this disciplined thinking? What is disciplined approach to the mental side? And brings me to the next aspect, which is self-discipline. Away from distractions. And the environment. So if you look at the mental side of the game and what players are not training enough, and this training again, guys, it comes from the driving range. You have to train your mind on the driving range first, right? You're going to be doing exercises which really test your mind on the range first, and only then can you actually take it into the golf course, and only then can you take it into competition. Now, if I gave you a 7-iron and I gave you 5 different targets and I stood behind you as your coach, I'm pretty sure you'd feel some pressure. You'd have to define every shot you're going to hit, whether it's a stock shot, which is maybe a light draw or light fade, or maybe a specialty shot that you want to do, which is a low draw, a low hook, or a high draw, or high fade. And you can hit 5 shots. And what you're going to see is that is where your mind starts to waver. Now, if you've trained yourself well enough, and this is where the training aspect is very, very important, which is the type of practice that you do. Okay. And we'll talk about effective practice in a bit. But when you hit a bad shot, and this is, I think, where a lot of players are going wrong in terms of how they think, is that they pull 3 shots, okay, and they maybe hit 2 on target. And what they're saying is that I have a technical problem. So they go to the coach, right? Or if the coach is standing there, and this is my advice to the coaches as well, is don't always peg it to a technical issue. It may be a tendency, I understand that, but a lot of times it could just be the way the person is thinking. What was he thinking during the shot? Was he really focused on his pre-shot routine? Was he focused on making a free golf swing? So many players today are swinging the club with so much fear of the negative outcome that they can't hit it straight. I mean, I have walked with a lot of my players on every single tour, from the professional circuit to the amateur circuit to the junior circuit, both boys and girls. And one of the things I saw and I noticed a lot was there's a lot of fear of failure, fear of a failure on that particular shot, fear of hitting the driver in the bushes. And I feel this is one aspect that's not being addressed. If you're going to play with fear, you'll play. So you have players who are winning tournaments on the national circuit and the junior circuit playing with fear. But how far are they going to go? And all that effort that you've put in for the last 10, 15 years to build yourself as an athlete and as a pro golfer and hopefully someday make it into the international stage ends up being for nothing because you don't get past the amateur circuit. So these things are very, very important, and identifying them and being self-aware as a golfer, as a coach, helping your student to be more aware, as a parent, encouraging your kids differently, right? Encouraging your kids to be more fearless rather than to win tournaments. Now, how do you tell a parent that? And as a coach, that's a hard thing to do. As a parent, it's a hard thing to accept. Why would I send my kid for all these tournaments to play and not win, but just focus on the mental side? So here's the thing that if you focus more on the processes rather than the outcomes, and you know that this is not new language to any of you guys, but in actuality, it's not happening because I don't see too many parents today asking their kids when they come off a round of golf in a tournament, saying, "Did you play fearlessly? Did you play without worrying about the outcome? Because that's more important." The first question is, what was your score? And why did you play the way you did if it wasn't good? And that is something I feel, even as coaches, that you must start to address early on with your students. Now, all the players who've gone out there, and if you look at the number of young golfers we've had, the question still arises as to why we have only one player on the PGA Tour today and one player on the LPGA Tour. And I was fortunate enough to work with Aditi Ashok for about 7 years. And all that happened through those 7 years. And what I noticed and how she developed is she had no fear. Because I remember very clearly on the fifth hole in KGA, we had gone out for a round of golf and she was playing the course and her dad was walking along with her. And there was a water hazard in front. So she hit a drive and now she had a second shot to hit over the water hazard. And her dad said, "You know what, play safe." And so I pulled her dad to the side and I said, "No, you're never going to say that to her ever again if you want to be her to be the best in the world." So I gave her a ball and said, "You're going to hit it over the water." And I think she hit about 3 or 4 balls into the water, but the fourth or the fifth one finally carried the water. And we said, "Okay, let's go." And today, Aditi is fearless as a golfer, which is why even though she's not the longest hitter out there, right? She doesn't hit the ball as fast. She's not physically, athletically gifted. She really honestly didn't spend too much time working on her fitness, but she is a regular player on the LPGA circuit. And we have all the other girls who can hit it further, who are more physically gifted, are not there. And this has to be instilled at a young age. And if you are someone who's 16 or 17 years old, can still be instilled in you. You can't wait till you're 24 or 25 in the middle of your professional career to suddenly realize I got to play this game fearlessly. So parents, key elements in this, coaches, you are very, very important in instilling that. And you have to learn to get them to say, "So what if I don't win the tournament? But I went out there and hit everything, without any fear." Very few times we actually have people talking like this. But I know for a fact that India is going to be a powerhouse in golf and we'll have more players out there. I just think it's a change in attitude. Environmental factors and self-discipline is a big issue again here. And I would encourage all of you guys, parents and coaches, to really instill this in your kids. So the I would say, number one distraction is right there. And every single player I've seen come off a tournament, come off a round of golf, gets on the cell phone straight away and is chatting with the friends or, watching Netflix. And you might argue that, the best players in the world also use their cell phone, but hey, they're all the best players in the world. And this discipline and what we did at the academy, we've taken away from the kids. That they're sleeping better, they're resting better, they're focusing better, right? Now, this is a habit. This is a habit that needs to be created, but there's a lot of peer pressure. So there again, the environment that your child is in is very, very important. And sometimes It's good to be a recluse when you practice away from everybody else, because there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of talk that goes on in the driving range. And if you want to be an elite player, if you're a child who wants to be an elite player, if you're a coach of an elite player, you've got to get them to understand this early. And there will be arguments. My players still argue with me saying, what difference is if I just go on the cell phone for an hour or two a day? What they don't realize, it's creating this little bit of anxiety in them. They're always thinking about the next WhatsApp message or the next Facebook post or the next, and they don't even realize that. And so what's happening is, if you have your cell phone with you during a practice session and it's in your bag, it may be in your bag, but it's still on, right? There's still the buzz going on in your head that, hey, I might receive a message. So then you're hitting 500 balls, out of which only about 50 balls, maybe, or 30 balls are done with complete focus, complete mindfulness. And then you go to a tournament and you can't wonder, and you wonder, hey, why is this not correlating, man? I'm a hardworking player. So we have a lot of players who are doing hard work, but it's not resulting and amounting in anything, because the work that they're doing is, not of the highest quality. So distractions, key element. And we have boys and girls, they're growing up, there are going to be distractions, but if they have a team around them, if you as a parent, you as a coach are always talking about it, it will get in there at some point. It has to get in there. Because what's the number one thing we have today? I think we have a lot of golfers who wanted to become great players, who didn't get there. And I can see a lot of 18, 19, 20, they're all hardworking. Don't get me wrong, they're all hardworking, but they're not working in the right direction. And it could be because of the information they received. It could be because of the influences. It could be technical, but it's also primarily because they really never took ownership of themselves, or were taught to take ownership of themselves and do what it takes to be the best. So we don't want them to stop at the amateur level, but they have no choice, because at the amateur level today, if you're shooting even 2 over par average, right, you're not going to be able to play professional golf successfully. So routines, again, I come to you, a routine is very, very important. And once you've got the environment taken care of, right, and if you are good even in a crowded environment or a noisy environment, and you have a routine. So to give you an example of a routine, a lot of players will go to the golf course and they have no idea what they're going to do. They've got the whole day to practice, but the golfer has not really gone out there with a plan. And here's how we make a plan for the players. And there are two sides of practice also. You have your regular practice, right, where you work on your technique, technical things. You can work on some distance control, etc. But then you also have to focus really hard on the performance side. And that would be, and this is how we do it, and how I do it is, I do week 1 is purely regular practice, and week 2 is performance. But the player has this file with him, so he knows from Monday to Friday, if he's got a 5-day work week, what he needs to do, and if it's week 2, what kind of practice he's going to do, right? And this is how the player's practice now becomes way more effective. Okay, and that's very, very important. The player's practice has to become effective. So if the player has this routine with them, and they go onto the driving range, there's no time wasted, because he knows that the first hour he's got to work on the technique, the second hour on putting, the third hour on wedge play, and so on and so forth. And that is very, very important. So this also brings a certain amount of discipline into the practice, right? And then you must also practice to perform. Nobody's technique is going to be perfect at any point in their life. There's always going to be a kink here, a kink there, but they have to learn to work through it. And if they learn to work through it using these performance exercises, and again, when they practice performance enough, they'll start to see that it's not just the golf swing that makes a difference. It's also how they're training themselves to think. So when you do a practice performance exercise, you are actually simulating exactly what you would feel in a tournament. The same thing you would feel in a tournament, and putting it out there on the driving range. And then really what you want to do is you want to document your success rate, right? So assuming you've done, let's say, a bunker test, here's an example, right? You're actually documenting everything in that bunker test. How many times you hit the target zone? What was your average dispersion from the hole? Did you make a free swing on that, or were you worried about anything? Did the outcome match the intent? Now, that's a very, very key thing that you must record for your players. If I hit a bunker shot and it goes near the hole, doesn't necessarily mean it's a good shot, because it's not exactly the way I wanted the shot to go out. And so here, the player can actually look at his success rate is around 60%, right? He hit the target zone 52% of the time. So you can make your own target zone, can be 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. His average dispersion was 11 feet today in practice. Right? Not too bad, but we'd like to get it under 10 feet in practice. And he made free swings 96% of the time. I hope this is big enough for you all to see. 96% of the time. So here, what we're actually also now measuring, we're actually measuring his mental state in practice. So now, all he has to do is, when he goes to a tournament, is recreate this, because he's practiced it, and this is only just one test, one day. If this is done day in, day out, week in, week out, he's doing different kinds of tests, right? You're going to see a lot of magic happen. And then the other thing we can do is, test yourself when you go on the golf course, right? So here is a player who's testing himself when he goes on the golf course, and you're starting to see that his success rate in the bunkers. And how the player does this is they go and they play 9 holes, right? But instead of saying, I shot 4 over today, sir, or I shot 2 over today, they need to test themselves and say, how good is my bunker play? So today I'm just going to go and test my bunker play. I'm going to purposely throw the ball in the bunker from every green, right? So obviously I'm going to get different situations to work with. And I'm going to see how far from the hole I hit it, and I'm going to see how many times I can actually make up and down. And the funny thing is, in practice, what you will see is the success rate, okay, will always correlate to your performance in a tournament, or their performance in a tournament. Because you're only going to be as good as you are in practice in competition. But the problem is, practice has to be of a higher quality, right? So if I were to look at now the same players' performance stats, right? And I assume I went into the scrambling. And again, here, this is a program called GolfStat Lab, which I use. I can always send you the URL for this. But hey, this helps me track my players. But if you look at, let's say, the bunker shots for this very player, okay, you can see his success percent is 33.3%, which is pretty much what he is in practice. So he knows, and I know as a team, that, hey, you know what? If you improve the way you practice, you're going to improve the way that you play. It's all correlated. So that brings in the performance element. All of this definitely is a lot of effort from the player side, from the coach's side, but that is what real elite training is all about. Is you have to be able to have systems and a team who can help you and help the player much, much more. So self-discipline has to be taught. Definitely very, very important. You want to have effective practice for sure, as we mentioned. Good mix of block and random practice, right? Building awareness of your current skill level. That's most important. Many players have expectations when they go out to play, and this will always keep the player grounded. The player knows how good he or she really is and how much they need to improve. So when you go into a tournament as well, expectations are where they need to be or none at all. I would prefer that players go into tournaments focusing more on their mind and using that tournament to improve themselves as an individual rather than come back with a trophy. Very difficult to do, right? But that is what you as a coach, that's what you as a parent, or that's what you as a player should strive to do. And another very, very important thing is you must
Sir, your
build a
voice
team.
is breaking. Can you hear me?
A team who is, I can hear you. Just give me a
Oh,
minute. I'll just check my internet.
now it's fine, sir. Now it's
Okay,
fine.
right. So now we look at building the team. And one thing about the team is a team will always help to build confidence. Okay, so you have your fitness team, nutrition, coaching, also maybe mentoring. You could have performance tracking. You could have a mind coach if you need one. But, and I forgot about injury management. So if anything happens in the middle of a round, if anything's happening in tournaments, if anything's happening, in the off season, let's say you have a small niggle in your shoulder, um, maybe not feeling confident enough, any of those factors, you know exactly who to address. And when you have an expert that you're working with, and trust me, if your expert is really an expert, you're going to see information coming to you on a regular basis. Because if I ask many players on tour, what even a simple question like, what was your scoring average last year? And they won't be able to answer that question. And the simple thing is, if we can just use a third party software, and this dashboard tells me exactly where the player needs to work. Very, very, very easy to work with. And most importantly, you're seeing here this player scoring average is 0.6 over par currently. Now, that begs another question is to say, hey, you know what? I have a lot of youngsters today who are turning professional because they feel that the amateur circuit has nothing more to offer them. Another thing that I feel a lot of coaches sometimes overlook, but I would advise you not to do that, because if a player is at a scoring average of 1 over par, for example, he's going to finish every tournament 4 over par. On the pro circuit, that's going to give you nothing. And your confidence levels will start doing a little bit of a dive. And in 4 to 5 years, you're probably going to have to give up the sport. So remember, something like this, a software like this, can also help you take decisions. Just like the fitness team can take a decision as to when do we need to take a rest day or a rest week, because they've got parameters, they've got information that will help them make that prediction, because they're collecting data. Data has been collected very, very regularly. And another really good way to understand more about your student is to see if they are committed to the process and actually entering the data regularly, giving you the data that you want, practicing the way that you really want them to. And for you players out there, it's a good way for you all to see how committed you actually are. You could have a lot of players saying, I want to be professional. There's a ton of them. We have thousands of golfers in India who want to be professionals. We have tons of club golfers who want to win their club championship. It all boils down to how you practice, firstly. And for a player who wants to become professional, it really boils down to the one simple aspect, which is discipline. And I think that is the number one thing that's lacking in our country in terms of this particular sport, is that there's not enough discipline being taught at an early age. And things like the cell phone or the cell phone usage. I can make a prediction today, and I may be going on a limb here, but I think if you took away cell phones from all our junior golfers today, right, our scoring average will drop by at least 5 strokes per round for every golfer between the age of 16 and 18. I've seen more players being destroyed by that piece of technology, because it's peer pressure, there's a lack of discipline. than anything else. And so my advice to parents also is, you got to get in, you've got to invest in a team. So there are no shortcuts. You can't just have a great coach and no fitness and no nutrition. And something about nutrition is that oftentimes performance is linked to nutrition. And if you learn to eat right at the right time, the right amount, and I've been working with a nutrition expert, many of you know Ryan Fernando. Um, I know so many of my players who've been benefited by just working with him because they're eating better, they're hydrating better. They may not even realize it, and that's the amazing part is they don't even realize it uh, that part actually has helped boost their performance. Because the last 4 or 5 holes, a lot of players will talk about fatigue, tiredness, and then they hit a golf ball to the left and the right. And the funny thing is that those players are blaming technique. They're not looking at their golf with a 360-degree view. It could be fitness, it could be muscular endurance. So that is where you as a player have to become smarter. As a parent, you must look at investing into a team. If you don't invest into a team, you'll work for 5, 10 years. And I've seen this. If we go down our history books, even to the South Zone or the West Zone or the North Zone, or even to the national circuit, there are countless number of players who we thought were going to be on the world stage and haven't reached there yet, or just gave up golf. So why is that? And the simple reason is that the right time between, I say, the ages of 18 to 21, they never got good enough. They didn't have the right kind of guidance. They didn't have the team. So it's very, very important that this is done early. Start the process early as you can. Get into things like tracking your performance, tracking your practice, documenting things, create good habits with your kids. As coaches, create good habits there. Go out and seek the knowledge. There's so much available today on the internet on performance training or even regular training. It's quite amazing. But I just think that we focus so much on the technical aspects. We focus so much on technique, which I feel is great. We have players hitting the ball beautifully on the driving range, but not able to translate it out there on the course. We have young players getting injured very early. Like you have a good example in Shubham Jaglan, who got injured very early in his career. We're hoping that it doesn't stay chronic, but he obviously has seen the worst of it now, and I think is much better. You don't want that happening to a kid who's 15 or 16 years old. Now, that is where the team comes in big time, because it could have been a technical issue, it could have been a fitness issue, it could have been anything. But unless you have that team who's working together, you can't have your nutritionist not talking to the fitness trainer who's not talking to the coach. It doesn't work like that. So build that team where everybody is talking and speaking the same language. They're all coming at the player with the same motivation, and which basically helps the player then, keep his focus purely on what he has to do. You can't have a player worrying about, did he eat correct? Did I practice correct? But if it's all given to the player, and the player's like a racehorse, right? If you look at the player is essentially a racehorse. Now imagine a racehorse without the blinders, right? If he's going to be going zigzag. So we've got all these racehorses here. We need a team to put those blinders on, whether it's fitness, whether it's nutrition, right? It's all laid out there. The nutrition chart tells you what to eat at what time and how much. The fitness trainer will tell you how much to train, what weight to lift, and how many reps to do. The coach is going to tell you how to swing the golf club, how to practice better. And you, as a youngster, have to just listen. So it's everyone coming together. And as parents, definitely, I would say, I think the focus needs to be more broader, not just purely on the golf. Because if we do pure golf, there will be success. 100% there will be success. The player will really do well in his junior career because you're focusing only on golf. What happens after that? And that's what, so it has to be a long-term plan. So any player who comes to me and says, I want to be a pro, for me, it's about charting out the next 5 years. What are we going to do, or what do we expect? And what do I expect from you? And then there's accountability. And there should be accountability both sides, because the player's ball is going left, right? As a player, you need to learn to demand from the coach and say, why is my ball going left? We need to fix this, right? So this is very, very important. That is you as a player, and this is for all the players out there, taking ownership of yourself and your golf, which means you're the boss and you've got to demand from the team. You have to listen to the team, but you also have to demand from them. If you have a back injury that's recurring, the fitness team has to have answers. The physiotherapy team has to have answers for you. Is it technical? How can I go forward without this injury recurring all the time? Could it be nutrition? So all of this put together makes you that elite player. And that is what we need to do, or you need to do, your team around you, and parents being the key stakeholders here, very, very important. If you're a club golfer who wants to get better, follow the same processes. It's not very difficult. Now, you might say, I'm a businessman, I don't have time, but I'm sure you can make a little bit of time to do a bit of fitness, eat the right way, and you want to win that national, the club championship. It's not easy. It may be a 4-day event. You have to be fit mentally, physically, technically. So everything is measurable today, right? Everything is measurable. I use simple Excel sheets. You can use whatever you like. There are programs available to measure the efficiency. Just get this going. Use this team to your advantage. And today, I think the number of experts out there are quite a lot. So when you talk about elite player development, it is a process. It is a long process. Physical, the mental, the technical, the nutrition, everything coming together. That is what's important. A lot of people, I think, also do talk about, maybe after 4 or 5 years, when my kid gets really good, then I'll bring in the nutrition expert. When my kid gets really good, I'll bring in a proper physical trainer. And that's the big mistake. You never really get good enough because you didn't get the push at the right time in your life or in your career, and then you're stuck when you're 18 years old. You're in no man's land. You're neither good enough to turn professional. You're just about maybe good enough to play the amateur circuit, but now you have to take a decision as to what your career is going to be. There's a lot of angst because the parents, of course, are worried about you. They might say, go to college now. You might not want to do that. So to avoid all of this, time is of the essence. If you're a junior golfer, you need to be able to take a call quickly. By the time you're 16, you should know. If you're somebody who's an amateur golfer now, you change the way you practice, you build a team around yourself. In 3 to 5 years, you could be one of the top pros. But make those changes. Those are the most important things. And yes, the final aspect is every new expert you bring in is going to cost you money. So there is no escaping that. If you want to be the best, you have to work with the best, right? And every new expert you bring in is going to cost you money. So you must plan for that. Plan for 5 years. To all you amateurs out there, I would say take a loan from your parents and return every penny when you make the money back. Take responsibility, take ownership, but don't cut corners. Cutting corners has never really helped anyone. Don't look at the anomalies either, right? If you look at a player who's made it out there without all of this, they're the anomalies today. And maybe they're a player with just crazy amount of hunger and skill and talent that they went out there and did it. Today, it's not so easy. Today, everyone's got the advantage of the team. And if you don't take it, they're all going to go ahead of you. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have. And I think if you get organized with your practice and your training, focus should not be only technique, as what I'm trying to tell you, is should also be a lot of performance. You must do a lot of performance practice. And even studies have shown that players who do more performance practice improve faster than people who do purely block practice or just hitting, balls in the driving range. Because if it was just about hitting balls in the driving range, all those youngsters would be out there on the PGA Tour right now, and they're not. And I feel really golf is going to be the sport for India because our bodies are really well suited for this sport. So take advantage of that, but just become smarter as parents, smarter as coaches, smarter as players, in how you take the player, how you take yourself through this journey, and how you demand, right? I would say always demand from your team. If you're not happy with something, you need to talk to them, because they need to know that you are going to keep them on their toes. Because if your fitness trainer just sees you in the gym every 3 times a week, he's really nice to you, he speaks so well, he's your friend, and there's no business relationship, you're in trouble. I see a lot of players also getting very attached to their coaches. It's fine, but there has to be that arm's length where, when the situation arises, you can have an objective talk with them and say, hey, you know what? This is very, very important for me. I need to hit the ball straight. Why is it not going straight? Simple things like that, right? And as a coach, I would say always seek help. My advice to all you coaches is always seek help. I'm always talking to coaches all over the world, trying to understand the swing better. I'm always trying to talk to performance coaches, trying to understand how I can improve the performance of my players. I'm always seeking help. If a player has an issue, I will send a video to maybe a putting guru somewhere in the UK to just figure out, hey, what am I not seeing? Because that actually strengthens you as a coach as well, right? And I really think, even in India, I'm hoping that soon we can have a meeting of all the minds of all the coaches as well, so that everybody learns from each other. That hasn't happened as much yet, but I'm sure it will in the future. Um, I always welcome any coaches to my academy to come see what we do, learn how we do it, take it back to wherever you come from. I have no issues with sharing knowledge. So any of you guys are interested, always come. And I've given this invitation out many times to the coaches in the South. I know, because I do the South refresher, but I don't see much uh, response. But I'm still saying, come, bring your students along. Let's both look at them. Why not? I'm not here to take your student away. Learn, go back, create another champion, right? Because today our country needs good coaches, good coaching talent, and it's there. But if you can plug in the gaps, that's most important. And that's what we need to do, and that's our responsibility as coaches. As parents, hats off to you for what you're doing for your kids. Your support is fantastic for those of you parents who are watching. But don't be afraid to invest. Treat it like a business. I'm not saying you should only look at return on investment, because what you're doing by investing in a good team is you're giving your child a great foundation that they will take forward for the rest of their life. Don't only look at the golf side of it. You could actually have a youngster, your son or daughter, who becomes active for life because of what you exposed them to when they were younger. So when they're 35 years old, they're out there playing tennis, they're playing football, they're in the gym, rather than sitting on an iPad and playing some games or watching Netflix. That's my hope. So thanks for listening, guys. I think I'm ready to take some questions if there are any.
Yeah, sir,
Thank you for your patience.
we have a few questions like, what's the ideal age for any golfer to join the elite program?
So, when you look at an elite program, the definition is not 100%, but I think by the age of 9, if the player is fairly serious, you should start looking at building your team then. And I would say with the 9-year-old kid, the first thing you want to do, the first thing you want to do is help them eat better. I've traveled a lot in this country, and the thing I've seen is all our kids have very, very poor eating habits. They've got so much sugar going into their system. They don't know how to eat the right kind of food. There's so much white bread going into their system, and it's because you probably haven't been working with the right kind of nutrition expert. So remember, if a kid's young, it's the best time to change their palate. So at the age of 9, around 9 or 10, start building the team around them. Nutrition first, then fitness. Golf anyway is going to be there, right? And if you have a good nutrition expert, a fitness expert, and a golf coach who's good, right, you're in an elite program already.
So why is the mental strength important?
So mental strength, and how do you define mental strength, right? That's the thing. To me, mental strength is not just on the golf course. My mental strength is if I see a piece of chocolate cake and I know that's got a lot of sugar in it, and I'm not supposed to eat it, and I still eat it, to me, that's a lack of mental strength. Mental strength also is when a coach has told you to go out there and hit 1,000 bunker shots, but after 400 bunker shots, you say, you know what, this is enough. I don't want to do more. Right? That's a lack of mental strength. Right? If your fitness coach has told you don't stop until you finish the 50th push-up, but you walk away after 35, that's mental strength. So that's why mental strength is super important. I say mental strength and mental discipline goes hand in hand, right? And if you can develop that again at an early age, I think you'll be fine.
Should you do fitness if you have an injury?
So definitely not, but you have to have someone who's managing that injury. So when you have an injury, let's say it's a rotator cuff issue or a shoulder issue, the first thing is the diagnosis. The second thing is a rehabilitation program, and then you go back into strength. So you've got to have that team who can do all three of that. So you've got to have your physio who diagnoses it, gives you the rehabilitation program, talks to the strength and conditioning expert, who then says, okay, fine, what do I need to do to strengthen it? And then you're back into playing golf, without worrying about the injury. The key is not to have a repetitive injury. So your strength program should be preventing any more further injuries, or your technique, coach talking to the fitness trainer, etc., should be preventing any further onset of that injury. That's the main thing. Stay injury free.
Why is it important to exercise before playing golf?
So I don't think it's important to exercise before playing golf, but definitely have a good stretching routine and a mobility routine that gets your joints and muscles ready for movement. So it's not really exercise. And again, this comes down to your fitness team. Your fitness team has to give you the protocols that you need to follow half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, before you start your round of golf.
How much would a parent spend for a program like this for his child?
Oh, that's a very good question. I can give you a ballpark figure. What if you look at a good fitness team or whatever, you'd probably spend $1.5 lakh a year on a fitness and physiotherapy program. Coaching would vary from coach to coach, but assuming you'd spend another couple of lakhs on that as well, and the nutrition expert will cost you around 50,000 rupees a year. So about 3 to 4 lakhs at the base level is what you'll spend, and depending on what else you want to to add on there would be. But yes, if you're looking at spending about 4 to 5 lakhs a year, that would kind of help you to build a really good team around your student, your child.
Can we do yoga or meditation before our game?
You can do yoga, meditation anytime. Again, like I said, get into a routine that kind of suits you, because if you're doing it just before a game, it may not be the best time, because your first round of golf could be at 12 noon, the second round of golf could be at 7:30 in the morning. So get into a routine where you're doing the yoga and the meditation the same time every day, right? Create a calendar for yourself, I would say, and do that the same time every day.
Is it always preferable to keep an open mind during the round?
Open mind is very broad as a statement. Open mind, definitely, I would say the key thing is to really focus more on the process, not the outcome. So give you an example. Let's say my process today, or my mental focus today, is only going to be great body language after every shot. And just keep that the focus throughout the round, right? That keeps your mind on a particular focus on a particular process and not necessarily the outcome. If you're mentally disciplined, you'll do that from the first hole to the 18th hole, and you'll see good results. So yes, keep your mind open to anything that can happen. But if you're focused primarily on the process, whatever happens will not bother you, because you will judge yourself based on how good your process was, not what the score was. And I'm not saying that the process is an excuse to have a bad score. Keep working on the process, the scores will start coming down automatically.
Should children leave phone to avoid distraction? There's a question from a parent, I guess.
I think changing the environment always helps. So I went to boarding school, and that is where I can say I got most of my discipline. And today, like I said, I am equally disciplined. I'm as disciplined as all my players. I'm up in the morning at 5:30. I'm in the gym. I'm doing everything that the players are doing. But I got this from the environment that I lived in for 6 years. So unfortunately, in India, we don't have too many residential academies for golf and sport, but we're getting more. I know there's a school called Scola Maria that's coming up in Hyderabad, which is a residential academy for multi-sport. I think I'm not sure there are any others, and apart from ours, which is the academy in Bangalore, we only have golf though. But the environment really makes a difference. And today, what's helping at least players, what I'm seeing in my academy, because I'm seeing them every day, is if a player gets up late, he's the only one left in the dorm, so he feels out of place, and you can be rest assured that the next day he's not getting up late. So same thing I had in boarding school. If I missed a workout or a morning run, and I woke up in the morning in the dorm, I was the only one there, I'd feel really bad. So definitely the environment, if you can create a good environment for them, and this is also why I feel that tier 2 cities have a bigger advantage, because the golf courses are more deserted, there's less of a social environment. Today, if you go to any golf course anywhere, a city golf course that's popular, uh, and you go to the driving range, it's a social affair. And you have 4 or 5 of these young golfers, very talented golfers, practicing together. They don't learn anything. So yes, create that environment, whether it's at home or if you have an opportunity to send them away from home, nothing like it. Because they need to learn life skills as well. They need to learn how to deal with adversity. And the most important thing for an elite player is to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If they can learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, that's what's going to take them to their best golf. Because every time under pressure, there's discomfort. But if you're so comfortable with discomfort, it's not going to bother you.
Is it always preferable to attack and play instead of playing safe?
Who's asked this question? Manat Bajoria.
Yes, right.
Okay, you got to be smart also, Manat. You can't always make stupid decisions on the course, or just, Um, if you have an opportunity, yes, you must attack. If the situation demands it, yes, you must attack. But sometimes if you've got a top left flag and your stock shot is, let's say, a fade, maybe you can kind of stay away from that one. But if you're coming down the stretch, you're leading the tournament, you need to have, or you're coming in second place, you need to make 3 4 birdies, then you got to do it. So it's always a situation that will demand that. But at the same time, you've got to have the skill to be able to attack. So if you have the skill to attack, right, then you can. And that's how golfers on the PGA Tour are shooting 62s at regular intervals, right? So you have to be smart. As you go ahead as a player, you'll kind of you'll realize this. But be smart at the same time. If the situation demands it, attack. And also, are you good enough to attack? Get good enough to attack also.
Can you give us some example for performance training? Someone asked.
So performance training in golf is, like I said, creating and simulating situations on the course or off the course. A simple example again would be, let's say I did an exercise and I want to document this exercise, and I pretend like I'm playing a tournament. Every shot I hit is a different club to a different target. No repeating clubs, at least for 3 shots. So let's say the first shot I hit a 7-iron, second shot I hit a 5-iron, third shot I hit a driver, fourth shot I hit a 7-iron again, to different targets. And I'm actually writing down the result of each shot. So what are the 3 most important parameters is the contact. Was it a good contact? Was it thin, fat? What was the ball flight? Was it straight? Was it a pull draw or a hook? Was it a push or a fade or a slice? Right? Did my ball go on target? So if I'm writing this stuff down, I'm actually testing my performance. And the funny thing is, even on the driving range, you will start to feel some pressure. So that's one good example of a performance drill. You can do this in the bunker. You can do this in the putting. You can give yourself 10 putts from between 0 to 10 feet and write down how many you made. The bunker shot, you can hit 20 bunker shots to different targets and calculate your dispersion level. Write it down. See your average dispersion level from the hole. You'll know how good you are. So performance really tells you how good you are and how good your skill level is.
We should attack and play even when there is water on the last hole and we are 4 shots ahead of the fourth day. It's the same question from the same person, I guess.
I think I already answered that. If you feel like attacking, go for it. If you have the shot in your bag, go for it. Right? Um, in the end, like I said, do the smart thing. But sometimes you're really feeling it. Sometimes your swing is on the song, the ball's going dead straight all the time. Go for it. No one, And just remember one thing though, is that as long as you don't let what people say bother you, because if you hit the water, people will say, "Oh, you shouldn't have attacked." But if you make a birdie, they'll say, "Oh, what a fantastic player." So nothing but being an elite player is blocking everything else out and being ready to block everybody else and everything else out. Because in this game, it's an individual sport. Only you know what you need to do, right? So attack when you feel like attacking. Don't attack if you don't feel like attacking. But whatever said and done, do things with a clear mind that no matter what everybody else says, I was going to do it anyway, right? Because it's human nature that if you hit the water, they'll say, "Yeah, what a bad mistake he made." But if you hit it to 1 foot, he'll say, "Yeah, what a fantastic player you are." You got to block everybody else out. That's something you got to train yourself to do right from the time you're practicing on the range. Because many times you'll have people making fun of you if you're not eating sugar. You'll have people making fun of you if you're doing push-ups in the middle of the driving range, right? That's human nature. You've got to focus on who? Yourself.
For a 11-year-old kid, what is a good score?
Again, that's I would not even put it at that. I would say for an 11-year-old kid, you got to look at is what's a good process. I would not even talk about score for an 11-year-old kid. So what's a good process? Is he eating well? Is he waking up by himself, or do you have to wake him up for a tournament? Is he disciplined with his practice? Is he happy when he's playing the golf course? Is he hitting shots without fear? That would be my measure of how good an 11-year-old kid is, not the score.
How do you differentiate between playing fearlessly, playing aggressively, and course management?
So they're all interlinked actually. I could even have a 4-iron in my hand and I could make a swing where I'm very scared. So that's probably just playing scared. Aggressively is, let's say, in a golf course in a short par 4, I'm going with driver, even though there is water hazard on the left and right, and there's OB over the green, but I still take my driver out. That's an aggressive play, right? So you have to balance it out, risk and reward. Be willing to take the risks. Be willing to take, the trouble that comes with the risk as well. But always, like I said, if you're doing things with conviction, whatever you do, whether you're taking an aggressive play or a conservative play, you could hit a 4-iron and still hook that 4-iron into the water. So whatever you do, you've got to do it with proper conviction, make a free golf swing, have absolutely no fear about the outcome. And where does that come from again? That comes from the right kind of practice. That's the most important thing. If you practice well, right, whatever you do on the course, you'll do it the right way. It's all about attitude in the end.
The next question is, how much time should the coach spend with his students in a week?
That's a good question. I think coaching, if the player requires a lot of coaching in terms of technical change, yes, I think time spent should be more. On the performance side, though, I think it should be very task based. Players should be given a task, and I feel the coach should move away. And what I do with all my players is I give them a task and I step back because it tells me how disciplined that player is when they're hitting balls. And I find a lot of times when I step back, the player's in his own world, he's chatting with his friends, all that stuff starts to happen. And that is good training because then you can call that player out and say, hey, you know what, I give you a task, what's going on? So if you're helping a student maybe make a change and is uncomfortable with the change, not able to, or you're using a training aid, helping him out or out, that's fine. Spend more time. In performance training, step back. Give them the task, step back. Because it could be a half an hour lesson or a 1 hour lesson. Sometimes a great lesson is where you don't speak for more than 5 minutes and you just watch the kid for the other 55 minutes. That's also a great lesson sometimes.
There is a question. I have been tracking my game for the past 5 years with over 300 rounds. How do I start interpreting the data?
That's where your coach comes in. You've got to share this data with the coach, your coach, whoever that may be, and then start putting out, looking at the trends that you're creating. Especially if you can differentiate between the tournament rounds and the practice rounds, or all the rounds put together, and then create some goals in practice, and then that'll make your practice more effective. Sometimes it's very difficult to do it by yourself because there's so many parameters. There's bunker shots, there's different type of bunker shots, there's fairway bunker shots, there's greenside bunker shots, there's shots under 50 yards, 40 yards, 30 yards. So you need to have a software or something that gives you that data, and then you're going to look at, hey, how much is that affecting my score? And based on that, you kind of structure your practice. And it's always good to do it with a coach because he'll be able to tell you how to do this. And very difficult to do it by yourself all the time. Because what
So
you're going to
there was an
differentiate
additional part with this.
in your game, what you're going to differentiate is, are your errors more technical or mental? That's the first thing. We have a lot of players who go play a tournament and they confuse mental errors with technical errors. And so I'll give you an example. And I'm on the first tee box in the Bombay Presidency Golf Club, one of my favorite golf clubs. And it's kind of a narrow tee shot. And guess what? I see my father watching from the room over there. And I get nervous. And I pull the ball left onto the ninth fairway and make a double bogey or whatever. Now, that was actually a mental error. But a lot of players will say, hey, you know what? My ball's going left. So he'll go to the driving range, he'll hit 500 driver shots. And next day, he sees his dad again and hits it left again. So very important to differentiate. So if you had actually practiced correctly and practiced performance correctly, how would you do it? You would go to the driving range, you tee up the ball, maybe 5, 10 balls. You'd pretend like you can see your dad and just focus on making fearless golf swings, without worrying about the outcome. I guarantee that ball will start going on the fairway more often. So that's very, very important. So you've got to have that in mind when you practice as well. And when you're playing, sorry.
There's a question, sir. I heard you speak about being fearless and aim for the best possible outcome. But let's say that particular shot was a 2 out of 10 probability to make a birdie. So, and it's a crucial point in the round. Now, how do I play smart and guarantee to score, or do
Guarantee a
take my
par.
chance? Guarantee a par, or do I take my chances?
Right. So there are no guarantees in life. There are no guarantees in golf. You want to be a pro golfer, there's no guarantee you're going to become a pro golfer. So here's the thing, is that in that situation, how strong are you? I know it's a 2 out of 10. Do you have the skill to attack a flag where the chance of birdie is 2 out of 10? Do you have the mental fortitude to attack a flag, right, where the chances of making birdie are 2 out of 10? And if you do, go for it. Do what your mind tells you. And if you've practiced the right way, right, you will pull it off. I mean, you've seen all these guys, Tiger, Baba, all these guys pull off some impossible shots. The commentator is saying that there's no way he can get this ball close to the hole, and Tiger holds that shot. Why? It's because of the way he built himself to think. He wouldn't, because if he had failed on that shot, the commentator would have said, hey, you know what? You should never have done this in the first place. But he proved all of them wrong because he was willing to risk failure. So remember something very important. You can never succeed in life, in anything, if you're not first willing to risk failure. So if you can learn to fail, you'll probably be much more successful in life. So sometimes take that shot on. Take it on because you want to win the championship and you don't want to come second or third. Either you win or you come 10th. Do you have the guts to do that? If you don't, play safe, go for center of the green, make your par, come second, or even maybe first, right? That's your call, right? But it's how you want to win that championship. So create the skill, trust that skill, and go for it.
Can I transition that data to Golf Stat Lab? Someone asked.
I think you'll have to check with them. I don't think so. Maybe if you have it on Excel files, it might be possible. You can. Well, if you have a lot of data, then it's tough. But you You can talk to them. I'm not sure whether you can actually migrate data from a different software.
Yeah. What's keeping Indians away from the PGA? Why the Americans are much more ahead?
Um, so one is definitely, I really believe that our school system is getting in the way. Between 8th standard and 12th standard, kids generally play much less golf. In America and Western countries, there's not much pressure on school. In fact, school is more encouraging than anything else. Um, so that's one thing. The second is the environment in America, in the Western countries. Even though the golf courses are really spread out, when you get into a competitive environment, there's, I would say, the environment is a lot more competitive very early. So guys are getting better so much faster. That's very very important. The other key one I feel in India right now, I feel it is really the environment and discipline. I think that is something that we need to really, really focus on and get more disciplined and be much better in practice. I think a lot of Indian kids tend to take it a bit too easy once they reach an older age, between 14 and 17. And if you look at the attrition rate between 14 and 17, almost 75% of players leave golf between the age of 14 and 17. This is not only in India, but it's world over. But I think that is the key reason is that uh, there's a lack. The players don't get good enough fast enough, and that's the time when they're in, let's say, from the 8th to the 10th standard. So unfortunately, in India, a lot of players are not really open to alternative schooling. A lot of parents aren't, and I can understand that. So you'll have exams and studies really getting in the way. You need a good 30-hour practice week every week for a long time if you really want to get that good. And you've got to have a quality 30-hour practice week as well. You've got to have fitness training, right? Because today the competition is so much. So what I see in the Western countries is one is, of course, if you look at reaching the golf course from your home in a Western country takes 5 minutes. Here it'll take you 45 minutes. So I think that maybe if the golf courses had more boarding facilities and dormitory facilities for young kids, if golf courses had more schools on their campus, all of that probably would change. But unfortunately, that's the way it is in India. And the reason I started the academy with alternative schooling was just to address this very, very issue.
How do you deal with the sledging by the fellow golfers?
Again, if you're mentally disciplined enough and you're mentally strong enough to walk away, I think it's very important that you learn to do that early on. Sledging normally is not much there in golf. To be honest, it's not a sport like cricket where there's a lot of it happening, or football where there's physical contact. And the beauty of golf is that you don't have to stand next to your player or your competitor. You can stand far away. So you have to be smart. I think I don't suggest that you sledge him back or her back, but stay away and be smart. And like I said, if you're good with the pre-shot routine and your process, they shouldn't really bother you. Can take some practice. So again, if you have an issue with sledging, recreate that in your mind on the practice range first. Pretend, simulate, hit practice shots, feel like someone is sledging you, right? If you recreate the situation enough, it won't bother you. You'll become comfortable in a zone of discomfort.
How do you work towards winning tournaments from just making cuts?
So if you're just making cuts, you're not good enough, your game is not there yet, you're mentally not there yet. All you have to do is change the way you practice. If you change the way you practice and practice smarter, like I presented, document your practice, work with a good teacher, a good coach. If you improve the way you practice, it's going to show straight away in your scores on the course. Because where does mental strength come from? Mental strength comes from the fact that you know as a player you've done your work. When you don't practice enough and you don't practice the right way, that is when you are nervous. You go to the first tee box and you're not sure where that drive is going to go. But if you have practiced enough, you've created simulated situations enough, you've learned how to swing the club freely, you're going to hit every shot without fear, and automatically your scores are going to drop. So it all starts from the driving range. How well do you practice?
What's the aspect you will see for a 16-year-old boy to become an elite golfer in future?
What is the aspect I will see?
Aspect, yeah. What is the aspect?
Only
Yeah.
one, only one. That's
Yeah.
discipline with whatever you do. Nutrition, practice, training, sleeping. Good that I brought sleeping up, guys. If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep to 10 hours of sleep every day, right, your body is going to break down at some point. How many youngsters between the age of 14 and 18 are getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep? Very few. So, number one aspect, 16-year-old upwards, check how disciplined you are.
I have been playing good golf for many years and handicap is not improving. Where do I start improvement?
Start with a technical analysis, right? Just 1 second, guys. I'll just sorry, my computer is about to run out of battery.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah. I have been playing good golf for many years and handicap is not improving. Where do I start improvement?
Yeah, you start with a technical analysis first to see which part of your game is weak and why. Are you able to hit the ball straight? Not? Is your contact good? Is it not good? The technical analysis will then lead to what you should practice and how you should work. Then you go into a zone of smarter practice, and I'm pretty sure you'll start to see your handicap improving. But if it's a technical issue where you're not able to hit the ball straight because your swing technique is not the best, then you need to start there.
Yeah. Uh, how do you build the player's perception of his own score? Because I feel
Um,
players these days go out hopping for a good score, hoping for a good score rather than being free and positively go under par.
Right. So the two aspects here. One is you're talking about the player and how he perceives his own score. So what we do with our players basically is we set some clear cut goals for each tournament or each year. It could be a year. So let's say for this year, my goal is only to learn how to swing freely without worrying about the outcome. We can actually measure that, right? That can be measured because if he swings freely, he writes a one. If he swings with fear, he writes a zero. And so basically, his goals are not score dependent. They are more mental. The goals are more mental and the more discipline. The more about discipline. So once you get the player understanding that there's a direct correlation between swinging freely and the score, provided his technical game is fairly good and he's fairly skilled, right? The player will start to understand that there is a direct correlation between being disciplined with my process, which automatically kind of brings my score down. So that's very, very important. You show the player that score is one thing, but you need to do something else to achieve a better score, which possibly could be just in how disciplined you are.
How does one utilize lockdown time with self-fitness and home drills?
So what we're going to do is, if you really want to know about that, we're doing a session on Sunday at 4 o'clock with my sports science team. So we're going to talk about some common exercises you can do for golf, some common injuries, etc. So tune into that, and because that's really not my uh, area of expertise, I will let those experts talk to you on that.
How can we get this golf stat lab?
Just go online, golfstatlab.com, and sign up for an account. Very easy.
What are some mental drills to calm my mind just before the tournament?
So again, it comes to how you're practicing, right? If you want to learn how to be calm, right, you got to be calm on the driving range first in a performance situation. So if you've practiced the right way, you've been in that situation enough in your mind, you have to recreate the situation in your mind. If you keep pretending you're all on the first tee box and keep hitting driver shots on the driving range, at least 10 or 15 of them every day, you'll automatically start to see your performance improves in the tournament, and you're so used to the situation that it doesn't bother you anymore.
Please suggest some drills for home practice, chipping in the garden, full shots in golf cage, and putting on the putting mat.
So while we're talking primarily about performance here, so um, I don't think you can do too many performance drills other than just focus on, let's say, a pre-shot routine and making swings without fear. I can't tell you much else because I don't know what the technical issues you might have with your swing. So I can't talk about technical improvements there. Um, but you could simulate situations. Oftentimes we get very nervous when we're chipping. So create a situation in your mind that I'm on the fourth hole. I've got to chip this one over the bunker and hit the chip without worrying about the outcome. Focus on your body language being positive after the shot, irrespective of the outcome. So many things you can do to improve your mind. But like I said, improve your practice and get more creative in your performance practice.
What exercises would you prefer before a game?
Again, this is your fitness team. Talk to your fitness team over there. They will prescribe the exercises that are more specific to you. And everybody's warm-up routines are supposed to be more specific to themselves, because if I have tight shoulders, if I have a poor thoracic mobility, my fitness team is going to give me exercises more based on that, on my issues, not generic. So again, comes down to the thing I spoke about is if you're a serious golfer and you really want to do well, contact a good fitness trainer.
How to convert bogey to par?
Oh, that's very easy. Just take a pencil, rub it out, and then write par. That was a joke.
So thank you so much. As of now, we don't have any questions. So I'm requesting participants to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Champ for Life Academy. And once again, thanks to all of you for coming here. So we are ending the session right now. Do you have to say something, sir, to the participants?
Nothing, guys. I'm always available for any of you guys who want to really improve their golf. You can email me on tarun@tsgolf.in, or you can send me a WhatsApp message as well on my phone number 9845907582. Happy to help you out with your performance issues. I think India has a great future in golf, and I'm hoping many of you watched, or many parents who watched, your kids will be in the limelight in the next 5-7 years. Look forward to maybe talking to you again on Sunday. Hopefully, many of you guys will be back there. We're going to talk about golf fitness. Thank you all. Thanks to the ProTouch team. Tuhin, thank you very much. Parmit and
Sir, one
Sia.
last question. There is one last question. How to constantly improve focus and contraction by meditation on a daily basis?
How to improve focus and concentration?
Focus and concentration. Yeah, concentration.
Yeah.
Right. So meditation techniques, there are many. There are many yoga instructors who teach meditation as well, and I would actually have you contact some of them because they are the experts on this. But whatever you do, remember, guys, it has to be practiced. If you don't practice it, it's not going to get better. So whether it's meditation, whether it's the way you practice, the discipline in practice, everything you do has to be done properly, and I think with more focus, with more discipline, you'll get better. So with the meditation part, contact some meditation experts. I know a lot of good yoga instructors all over. There are who can kind of take you through good meditation. So great. I hope you do well with that. Okay. Thank you.